Who do you believe is most likely to tell the truth in a crisis? Those who have everything to lose, or those who have everything to gain? It can go both ways. However, the average educated person wouldn't put their personal and their professional reputation on the line, as well as their family at risk, to tell a lie in which they had very little to gain. However, could you imagine governments, powerful institutions, or corporations telling lies in order to save face or make profit? It's definitely been done before. Were you aware that in February 2020, the Australian government announced commercial television and radio broadcasters like Channel 9, Channel 7 and Channel 10, just to name a few, in return for reporting more exclusively on COVID-19, they would receive 100% tax rebates for 12 months on their commercial broadcasting. The rebate provided the commercial broadcasting sector with $41 million in tax relief. But this didn't happen with the smaller independent journalists covering all angles of the COVID agenda. Ping program, known as a public interest news gathering, received another $50 million. This program aimed to support high-quality news in regional and remote areas of Australia. So, why has there been such a scanty and filtered scope on effective alternative COVID treatments, as well as positive ways to increase our immunity and well-being? Instead, these commercial channels have sensationalised and inflamed focus on fear-mongering propaganda. Commercial platforms have conveniently indoctrinated one narrative of COVID-19: fear of COVID, fear of each other, and to top it all off, promoting a trial vaccine program that worldwide is clearly headed in a very different direction to what was initially planned and promised. Commercial platforms have not only neglected to keep the Australian population well informed, but the government has financially rewarded them from doing so. The government encouraged our commercial channels to reduce the broadcasting time for things like documentaries and children's learning program in place of fear-based propaganda. If you don't believe this, you can access all of this information on the .gov.au website. WHO, the World Health Organization, said there are no shortcuts and no silver bullets. The answer is a comprehensive approach using every tool in the toolbox. But for the past 12 months, our government and the media have been drilling us with such silver bullet statements like, the return to normal life will be possible once we get a vaccine. You will gain all of your freedom when you are vaccinated. The non-vaccinated are responsible for the continuation of this pandemic. But no real-world study has provided the slightest evidence to support this pro-vaccine injection marketing propaganda. And what happened to broadcasting the very successful early treatments for COVID-19? It is high time that our ministers of health considered the facts and the conclusion of many foreign agencies. The failure of pseudo-vaccines is all the more evident now that cheap early treatments have proven time and time again to be safe and effective in countries like India, Japan, Indonesia, Africa, and certain states of the United States of America. Where has this high-quality news been on Australian commercial television or radio? Nowhere. These successful alternatives have been downright slandered and ridiculed on the commercial television. And worse still, these alternatives have been criminalised for our medical professionals. APRA, the Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, has placed a gag order on Australian medical staff, which not only stops them from treating COVID early to avoid hospitalisation, they are also prohibited from speaking truthfully about any adverse reactions, as it goes against their vaccine marketing campaign and messaging. Talking too openly about any adverse reactions can cost them their medical licenses as well as heavy fines. Our commercial broadcasters are misleading you with false promises that vaccines are unwaveringly safe and effective. The media have neglected to report on the worldwide failing vaccine efficacy and ever-increasing adverse reactions and vaccine death toll. Otherwise, why are we having these types of debates in our parliament?
We have got Australians who have been injured, who did the right thing, who listened to the government that said the vaccines were safe and effective. And what we've seen is many of these victims have been scorned and ignored by the medical community. It must be particularly difficult to have an injury at the best of times, but it must be so much more worse when you go to the doctor or the hospital and you're not getting the attention that you need. People have been injured for months now. There have been people who've been paralysed down their right-hand side. There's people who've had strokes, pulmonary embolisms, myocarditis, pericarditis, functional neurological disorders. And these people have been left helpless by a government who are more than happy to indemnify foreign pharmaceutical companies, many of whom are convicted felons for past misdemeanours, but now we are neglecting suffering Australians.
So on top of the plethora of adverse reactions and deaths from the so-called vaccines, COVID by agenda has caused the largest transfer of wealth in the history of America, no doubt the world. Trillions of dollars from the middle class to the mega rich, and mainly the technology moguls. It is those moguls that are censoring the scientific views of world-renowned experts that have nothing to gain from lying and everything to lose. The time to wake up is now. Become a critical thinker. Seek out respectable and alternative channels to keep yourself well informed of the whole truth. Be aware that your governments are not only incentivizing your once trusted commercial broadcasters to communicate their agenda, these media outlets are also incentivized by organizations that are making billions of dollars from your fear, as well as the vaccines that were promised to supposedly save you.